Howdy friends, today I want to talk about the flooding that's currently happening in Metro Manila in the Philippines. Right, if you're not aware of it, there are some major typhoons that have been coming through for the last couple weeks, and it's just one after another. So these typhoons and these storms are causing some major flood surge in a lot of our local communities just outside of Manila. And that might not seem like news in itself, but this year has been increasingly worse. There's been a lot more water, and the result is a lot more flooding. But what I really want to call out is the reason for the flooding in the first place. It's not what you think. It's not the excessive rains. What's causing the flooding is lack of planning and lack of follow through with developers. More and more often, as communities are being built, new neighborhoods are being put in, the developers are doing favors and getting their permits passed through without having the proper planning assigned to their communities. So what I'm talking about here, for example, where our house is at in Caloocan, I'm not going to name the specific little town or community that we're in because I don't want to get in trouble with the HOA. But the developer where our house is at, when they put in this community back 50, 60 years ago, they built on an old farm. It was all rice fields in this area. Well, when the developer leveled off the land, put in their community, they didn't have any plans for storm drainage systems. As crazy as it sounds, right? There's, I don't know, maybe 600 houses in this larger community we're in, and there's not a single storm drain. Now, on the east side of our community, we've got a natural river that flows through. On the west side, there's a couple of creeks, and then it all kind of funnels down into the neighborhood below us, which was also farmland at one point in time, and it isn't anymore. So what we're finding is, as more and more houses are being built in our neighborhood, in our community, there's less and less surface area for the groundwater to be absorbed, right? Which means that water ends up on the streets, ends up pooling in the lower areas, and it gets trapped. And this year in particular, there's just not enough surface area for the water to dissipate naturally. So it's building up, and there's some major flooding issues happening. So that's my own little community. Now look at the grander scale of, say, Metro Manila, where you can't stop building, right? They're putting high rises up left and right. There's new shopping malls on every corner, new hospitals, new universities, right? There's just massive development happening. And they're building on top of old communities that had no infrastructure, which means there's no existing infrastructure for these new developments either. Now, obviously, when you get into like downtown Makati, they've got good storm systems in place, they've got sewer systems, but when you get into the outskirts, that infrastructure is not there. So we're tearing down old neighborhoods, putting in more fill dirt, and then building high rises. And it's just causing more and more flooding concerns. So I guess my complaint here is, why is it okay for a developer with a little bit of extra cash to be able to take shortcuts that are really affecting the lower income and the more vulnerable in the community, right? And I know that's probably not a big shock for a lot of you guys, right? The rich guy gets away with whatever he wants. The poor guy has to suffer the consequences. But I guess I'm especially frustrated at this point in time because it's so apparent right now that it was an intentional lack of planning, right? It was a shortcut to save money that's causing so many of these major problems now. And at this point, there isn't really anything you can do to it, right? There's billions of pesos invested into flood control every year in the Philippines. But where does that money go? Is it going into infrastructure projects? Maybe. Is it going into storm systems? It's hard to tell, right? Even the NLEX right now is having flooding issues. That's the elevated expressway. Some of their interchanges were actually shut down yesterday because there's so much water there. This is a brand new express freeway, and they didn't put in proper flooding or proper storm drain systems. So where's the billion pesos a year that's supposed to be dedicated towards these infrastructure projects? Are we lining the pockets of politicians? Or is it just going right back into the developers' pockets and they're not spending the money on it? I don't know. I'm just a small guy with a little piece of land, and luckily I built my house up 4 feet above the road, so I don't personally have any issues, but my entire neighborhood is underwater right now, and it's because somebody took a shortcut to save a few pennies, and they might have greased the wheels with a local politician to get it approved. Just one rant from a guy who's trying to deal with the situation. But my hearts and my prayers go out to anybody who is being affected by this flooding right now. Hopefully you're safe and you can weather through this storm, and we'll see what the $1 billion for the 2026 budget brings us.